In this week's drive, we see the prototype of a Ferrari killer from Ferrari, find out who loses when cultures collide, watch a first-time winner jumping for gold, and catch up with the most famous voice in motorsport. All this and more in this week's Drive. Nothing runs without oil. Nothing else in the racing world has to do so much or has to be so closely watched and examined for consistency, efficiency and durability as the simple oil that goes into the engine. It's the oil that lets mechanical parts glide smoothly over each other, and a good oil can mean better performance.
That's something that has developed over the years, adding a bit of extra horsepower. In 1997-98, you could still often get 6, 7 or 8 more horsepower, depending on the oil. In normal cars too. The only problem is that the bearings suffer if you use very thin oil, but we're not doing 100,000 kilometres, so it's not too bad.
For all the drivers in Formula One, the engines and gearboxes need to stay together for exactly one weekend at a time. But with revs exceeding 18,000 RPM and temperatures inside the casings of over 300 degrees, racing oil doesn't have an easy life. So it's no surprise that it's a pretty special kind of oil.
The lubricant film mustn't be interrupted, and its frictional resistance has definitely got to be low. In other words, it should ideally be as thin and fluid as salad dressing, but should lubricate like the best, thickest transmission oil ever. So naturally, what the oil manufacturers have to do is work with the engine and transmission constructors to find the perfect compromise.
Inside what looks like an English aristocrat's stately family home are the laboratories of Castrol, a company that has been actively involved in the lubricants business since the very earliest days of motorsport. The labs are high-tech and a highly secret establishment. The research scientists and technicians here are constantly developing and testing new man-made additives to help improve the oil, its performance, lubricating and cleaning abilities, and resistance to heat.
The precise details and ingredients in the Formula One oil is of course confidential to Castrol and to BMW, but we can tell you that it's a unique blend specifically designed for the BMW engine and contains high performance synthetic oils and a mixture of low friction additives.
No two oils in Formula One are the same. Each engine design has different demands and imposes different stresses on its lubricant. What's perfect in a BMW might make a Ferrari seize, or vice versa. Most engines use about 10 litres, but high accelerating, braking and cornering speeds are a problem. Like a glass of water in a roller coaster, the oil sloshes around inside. To overcome this, pumps make sure that the oil gets to where it's needed all the time in a so-called dry sump system, which is increasingly often found in sporting road cars. Road-going oil benefits from developments made on the track, a clear case of racing improving the breed.
The
sort of engine oil used in Formula One is very thin. It's a fully synthetic base oil, as is now also used in modern passenger car engines. The difference comes from the additives. For passenger cars, the additives have to be geared much more towards long engine life. The advantage of thin oil is less friction inside the engine. This helps reduce fuel consumption, especially on short trips and in urban traffic.
It's a good example of technology transfer from track to road. And naturally, oil companies like Castrol make many more millions of litres of oil for ordinary road vehicles than they do for Formula One. Long series of tests show how well each new additive will work in practice. Much fuel can be saved on the road. However, in Formula One, this isn't a high priority. Over a typical weekend, most teams will get through 1,200 litres of fuel and 80 litres of oil. But then 900 horsepower, 18,000 RPM, 340 kilometres an hour, and over 8 million ignition cycles do have very special requirements. That man Schumacher just rolls on. He has only one more record to beat in Formula One. Ayrton Senna's record of 65 pole positions. Michael has 62. With their 7th 1-2 finish of the year, Michael and Rubens have given Ferrari their 14th Constructors' World Championship, their 6th in a row, all records. The latest round of the Le Mans Endurance Series was at Silverstone. From the start, Allan McNish and his Audi co-driver Pierre Caffer were involved in a battle royale with the number 22 Zytek car and its drivers Robbie Kerr and Chris Dyson. The Zytek pair had set the pace all through practice, and race day was no different, as they charged around the circuit at an average speed of 190 kilometers an hour. The two teams were fighting for every inch, no matter what was in their way, going as if it were a sprint race instead of a 5-hour, 1,000-kilometer marathon. The Audis have dominated this series, with McNish and Caffer winning at Nürburgring and Herbert and Davis at Monza, but the Zytek soon took the lead. But their car was damaged in this mid-race incident with the Lister Storm, and later with a Ferrari, falling back to 4th as a result, and McNish's Audi hit the front and never looked back. Audi reliability allowed McNish the luxury of a one-lap lead in the final hour, and he slowed to conserve fuel. Seiji Ara and Rinaldo Capello were second in their Team Go Audi, the car's handling improving as the air temperature dropped as evening approached. The pair inhabited second when Johnny Herbert made an unscheduled stop for a new nose. Though the Team Go car made a late splash stop, Herbert went in again for new tyres, cementing 3rd place.
The pressure obviously was quite high here. The weather was helpful because it was only dry and not wet and dry like Nürburgring and Monza. But the last few hours were quite physical because Silverstone's a hard track. So I was pleased to see the checkered flag and in first position.
The Le Mans Endurance Series reaches its climax in Spa in Belgium in September.
Grid positions, a few pace laps
Jeff Gordon attempted to join AJ Foyt, Al Unser and Rick Mears as 4-time NASCAR winners at Indy. There was contact just after the start of the race. Pole sitter Casey Mears bumped Ward Burton as the pair entered the first turn. 23 laps in, Tony Stewart narrowly avoided disaster when his car spun. Stewart managed to get the car under control before any of the cars behind him collected him in the smoke.
Kept the car from back in the outside retaining wall.
7 laps later, series points leader Jimmy Johnson lost control after a tyre blew. Johnson survived the spin but went out on lap 88 with engine failure and finished 36th. Sterling Marlin also blew a tyre, this time on the 68th lap. The wheel locked up and his number 40 car trailed sparks and fire, causing yet another caution on the track.
Are setting the rubber on fire.
5 laps later, on the restart, there was a multiple car crash that would cause the race to go under the yellow flag yet again.
Exactly what
Looks like it might have.
Rusty went up and drove into the door of Casey Mears, and I think it cost him.
Watch that 10 car. Right in front of Terry Labonte and Ward Burton. And Ricky
On the restart from that crash, Jeff Gordon cut low on the track and passed Elliott Sadler. Sadler wouldn't regain the lead and finished 3rd behind Gordon and Dale Jarrett.
Oh, here we go, battle for the lead. Gordon looking on the inside, takes it away.
Gordon wouldn't lose the lead and in fact led for 124 of 161 laps. The victory was his 5th of the season and the 69th of his career. A crash involving Ryan Newman and rookie Brian Vickers on lap 155, the record 13th caution of the day, set up the final restart when it took until the end of lap 159 to get the track cleared. Gordon was about 6 car lengths ahead of Dale Jarrett when the last yellow flag came out, and that's the way the race finished, although the pace car didn't have time to get out onto the track. Drivers faced the first green-white checkered flag since the rule was added to assure races finished with cars racing instead of cruising behind the pace car. Elkhart Lake's famous Road America greets race fans with a carnival atmosphere. Tents and campers line the circuit and families soak up the sun, and races at Road America sometimes feel more like a day at the circus than a trip to one of America's top racetracks. Early in the race, rookie Ryan Hunter-Reay tangled with Jimmy Vasser in the red car. They touched as they fought for the corner and both cars spun, bringing out the caution flags. Despite the incident, Hunter-Reay finished 4th and Vasser came in 8th. At the restart, there was contact between series leader Frenchman Sébastien Bourdais and another rookie, Alex Sperafico. Pole position starter Bourdais was able to continue and finished 3rd. Sperafico lost 2 laps. Canadian Paul Tracy made a routine pit stop, but others gambled on pit stop timing and managed to get out in front, such as Alex Tagliani. Mexican Rodolfo Lavin was also looking for his first ever race victory. His previous best place was a runner-up finish. 3 laps from the end, Bruno Junqueira hit the brakes hard on a downhill stretch and Tracy rammed into his car, receiving a black flag from officials who ruled it was an avoidable contact. Tracy finished 12th, Junqueira 15th. At the same time, AJ Allmendinger spun and stopped on the back straight. The multiple incidents brought out the caution flag again in a race that ended up being shortened by 4 laps due to time constraints, setting up a restart with 2 laps to go. Tagliani got the jump on the restart and rolled away from Lavin, with Bourdais having worked his way back up the ladder to score the 3rd podium spot. Tagliani used shrewd pit strategy, a strong race car and some long-awaited luck from the fates to score his first win, taking the checkered flag for the first time in his 85 career starts.
I had so much bad luck that it was difficult to feel that it was going to be the one, but when I saw the white flag, I said, all right, this is going to be an easy lap. And when I got into the last corner, I said, even if anything happened, I'm going to roll in and everything will be fine. So it was some fantastic.
He's finished second 3 times, including at Elkhart Lake 2 years ago. One of the most eternally popular British sports cars ever made is being celebrated with a special edition at the Design Museum in London. Of the 72,000 E-Types manufactured by Jaguar between 1961 and 1975, 6 models, from the earliest to the last model to roll out of the factory, are on display at the museum. Each of the 6 models on display are thought to be worth at least £250,000 each, more than 100 times their original price.
They're such a classic car, I mean a real design icon. And really from the moment the car was launched at the Geneva Motor Show in 1961, they caused quite a stir, a real sensation, as they are doing here at the Design Museum. And really they represented sort of style, incredible sleek, fantastic, stylish car with value for money. At the time, they promised a top speed of 150 miles per hour, and they cost £2,097, which was sort of half the price of an Aston Martin.
The rare cars and memorabilia on show celebrate the design, quality and workmanship that have made the E-Type one of the most prized models for automotive enthusiasts. The cars on show come from private collectors and a heritage collection belonging to the Jaguar Daimler Company. The exhibition is a tribute to Jaguar's pioneering British designer Malcolm Sayer, who based much of his famous E-Type model on his work with aerodynamics in the aviation industry.
What he sort of combined was aerodynamics with sort of very sort of strict mathematical principles to create this sort of incredible sleek monocoque construction. And it's really the sort of the bonnet as well, which I think that sort of very sort of elongated nose, which is very sort of characteristic of the car. And also the interior as well. I mean, not only its performance and the speed that it could command at the time, but, you know, the interiors of the cars are absolutely, it's just so beautiful.
A cultural icon of the 1960s, the classic E-Type Jaguar would still be a welcome addition in any garage today. The E-Type exhibition is open until October, when at least one of the classic cars on display will speed back into active service on the racetrack. Ferrari. 14 Constructors' Championships in Formula One and as many drivers' titles. The history of the Scuderia is closely related to racing in general and Formula One in particular. But Fiat, owner of Ferrari, also owns another prestigious Italian brand, Maserati. Since last year, the cars with the famous Trident badge have returned to competition in the Maserati Trophy. However, the ambition is to shine at a much higher level, and Maserati has developed the MC12, which will very soon make its debut on the track.
In the sporting program of the Fiat Group, Ferrari contests the Formula One Championship and Maserati is entered in the endurance and GT races. I'm very satisfied with the development of the machine, both from the reliability point of view as well as the performance. Moreover, it is very beautiful, and obviously I am delighted by the results of Ferrari in Formula One.
It's not surprising that the president is satisfied with Ferrari's results, as they completely dominate Formula One this season. Secretly, he no doubt dreams that Maserati will arrive in GT with as many successes as Ferrari in the single-seater class.
Today, Michael Schumacher will test the Maserati, as it is already at an advanced stage of development. It's the first time that he will drive the car. Jean Todt is at the head of the group's sport activities, and it's logical that the two brands share their high levels of technical knowledge.
Schumacher in a GT car. We haven't seen that since his time at Sauber Mercedes, just before he began in Formula One at the Belgian Grand Prix in 1992. Since then, he's entered 207 Grand Prix, finished on the podium 134 times and won 82 of them. The German multiple world champion doesn't take long to get his hand in again.
It was an interesting feeling. It's a long time ago I drove a sports car the last time. It's very well balanced in all the slow corners. The engine goes very well. They have done a good job in such a short time, and I look forward to have another test.
And since both of Ferrari's Formula One drivers were at Fiorano to test new developments on their regular cars that day, Rubens Barrichello also got some track time in the prototype Maserati MC12. Purely a single-seater driver, the Brazilian, unlike his teammate, hasn't had any experience in driving this type of machine. For him, it was therefore a whole new experience.
It was a great feeling. I had first 2 laps, I never driven a car like that, and I was quite impressed. It's something that, the position is not for me, and I had to press the clutch with something that I don't do for a long time, but I was impressed. Only 2 laps, the car was handling very well, so I like it. I think Maserati is doing a great job. They're going to be competitive, I hope, and I had a good impression about the car, and Maserati, Ferrari are putting a lot of effort for this car to become a good one.
So, 37 years after its last international racing victory, a Cooper Maserati at the 1967 South African Grand Prix, the Trident emblem is returning to the track. In order to race the MC12, Maserati must build 25 road-going examples. It has a mid-rear mounted 6-litre V12 engine which delivers 630 horsepower and can exceed 330 kilometres an hour. And, as they say, if you have to ask how much, you probably can't afford it. The 3,100-kilometre Rally d'Oria, round 5 of the Rally Raid World Cup, was held in Turkey. Belgian Grégoire de Mévius, driving a Nissan pickup, held off a fierce challenge from Frenchman Jean-Louis Schlesser on the 7th and final stage to clinch victory. De Mévius held a 2-minute, 3-second lead going into Saturday's final 435-kilometre double stage. But despite finishing behind Schlesser over the 110 and 325-kilometre tests, De Mévius had a sufficient cushion to win by 1 minute and 25 seconds. Germany's Jutta Kleinschmidt finished third to claim the first podium for the Volkswagen Touareg. Kleinschmidt was third overall, over 13 minutes behind, after taking 1 stage win to the 3 consecutive stage victories teammate Bruno Sabi had taken in his Touareg before suspension damage forced the Frenchman to retire. At the time he went out, Bruno had a 10-minute lead. It was only the 3rd event for the Volkswagens, being developed for a full onslaught on next year's Paris-Dakar.
The rod is gone. We should change the part, but I haven't got it here. We want to return, but it's just not possible. It's this part in the back here.
Jutta had claimed 4th place in Morocco, but since then a great deal of development testing had been done. Jutta and her female co-pilot Fabrizia Pons said the Touareg performed faultlessly throughout the entire event. Jean-Louis Schlesser in his Ford-powered buggy was just 85 seconds behind De Mévius at the end. De Mévius completed the 3,100-kilometre event in 23 hours and 47 minutes. final day of the X Games in Los Angeles saw American riders take home the gold medals. Ben Bostrom made a stunning pass on Belgian Eddie Seal late in the 22-lap race to win the first ever X Games Supermoto gold medal. Bostrom, a former flat-tracker racer from Las Vegas, cut inside leader Seal, the defending world Supermoto champ, on the final lap, forcing Seal off his line and very nearly off the course to grab the lead. He was unchallenged all the way to the flag on the hybrid half-dirt, half-asphalt circuit. Bostrom has had limited success in road racing aboard a Works Ducati Superbike. Supercross legend Jeremy McGrath finished third behind Seal. Freestyle motocrosser Nate Adams took the lead after his first run and never lost it to claim his first ever gold medal. Travis Pastrana, last year's gold medalist, took silver for the first time. He rode with a concussion, a broken toe, a tweaked wrist and an eye contusion sustained in a crash on Saturday night. Adams is the only rider to beat Pastrana in a freestyle final. And finally, 84 daring teams from all over the UK recently spent a sunny Sunday launching themselves off a 12-metre-high ramp in an assortment of strange vehicles. A huge crowd came to watch entries ranging in design from an Eiffel Tower to a beach careering down a 650-metre course through the grounds of Knebworth Park, north of London. Soapbox racing is described as a cross between the wacky races and a mini Grand Prix, attaching wheels to wooden crates that used to be used for delivering soap. Just 4 years after the first Red Bull soapbox races in Belgium, 50,000 people watched the UK event, although 3 times that number applied for tickets. Despite the lack of horsepower and noise, the racing still managed to excite even veteran British Formula One commentator Murray Walker.
There's some wonderful soapboxes, if you can call them that, because they're a far cry from the archetypal historical box on wheels. Some of them here are absolutely marvellous, beautifully thought out, beautifully built and well driven.
They go plunging down the ramp. Fantastic performance, and it's only fools and horses that are in the lead. Now that was the fastest one in...
What happened last time? They buckled both the wheels. They're coming up to the Spin City roundabout now. Into the run. The wheels have gone. The wheels have gone. That's what I thought. And into the...
The teams competed more for pride than prize money. The winner could choose between a year's worth of elite driver training or $8,000. Some teams looked like driver training was needed. Some needed no help with the engineering. One team of Royal Air Force cadets built a replica of a Typhoon, while a joint BBC-Honda team raced a high-tech crash helmet. But it was the less expert contraptions that caught the imagination of the crowd. The man in a high-speed bathtub, a vampire in a coffin, a huge chunk of cheese called 3 Blind Mice, and the Prats of the Caribbean complete with galleon. Others, like the Volvet Underground, claimed their bizarre interest in voles and badgers inspired their design, a small grassy mound driven by a vole which was surprisingly fast. Marks were awarded not only on speed but also creativity of the design and the volume of the applause. Ah, to be in England in the summertime. So, whether you're just catching up with friends, setting the track alight, or just getting in a spin, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.